It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Oh, yes, it does. And good to have you with us on this Wednesday edition of the show. We'll have all our usual fun on Wednesdays. Our friend Kurt Helin drops by. Pro basketball talk at NBCSports.com is his jam. We'll get some thoughts with him around the league. I got something to say about Anthony Edwards. And I've never been a huge Anthony Edwards fan to begin with, so I already start from a place of not being his biggest fan. But something came across yesterday, and it's one of those things that makes you go, now I kind of understand why he doesn't want to be the face of the league, and maybe why he shouldn't be the face of the league. We'll get into that coming up a little later on. Odds and ends, a whole bunch more, but some NFL to start the show today. Some football for the first couple of segments on the show. There's Vladimir Lewisan, who hangs out with us on Wednesdays. Typically, he was with us yesterday, too, as Sam is off for a couple of days. From WQAM in Miami. All right, Vladimir Lewisan.
What's going on?
What's going on? Let's do this. The Jets have cut Davante Adams. Now, we know that he and Aaron Rodgers typically now, I guess, come as sort of a package deal. That would be kind of hard, though, because Max Crosby, who I wrote as Bubba Crosby in our rundown because I was thinking of the former New York Yankee, Max Crosby is trying to lure Aaron Rodgers out to Las Vegas, which we'll get to in a second. But Davante Adams gets let go by the Jets. So now you've lost Davante Adams, you've lost Aaron Rodgers in this offseason. Still have no idea who's going to play quarterback for the Jets next year. I mean, there's really no. Maybe it's Tyrod Taylor.
Well, he'll be there, but it's either going to be Justin Fields or they'll draft one of the quarterbacks in the upcoming draft.
Well, that remains to be seen. But what I am curious to know is, where does Davante, does he really wind up? I mean, he's not going to wind up in Vegas because we know the way that thing went down.
He's going to Kansas City.
You think he's going to wind up in Kansas City, huh?
Mm-hmm. What's the only thing that's missing from his career?
Yeah, but
a Super Bowl victory.
Oh, I don't disagree with that.
He's got the money, and we have to got to look at the wide receiver position for the Chiefs. The Chiefs were, ever since they let Tyreek Hill go, yes, they won, but they've been really winning because of their defense. So,
yes. I think they're high on Rashee Rice, though. I think they're high on Rashee Rice.
We don't know what Rasheed's coming from an injury, and he also has some off-the-field matters from last year that he has to take care of.
No, I know. But
I wouldn't be surprised if Davante Adams is pursued by the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think they got to figure out that offensive line, because clearly the Eagles unlocked something. And look, this is a copycat league, you know as well as anybody. In a copycat league, there are going to be teams examining and going over that footage over and over again to try and figure out, all right, how do we replicate that? How do we go? I'll tell you, we had Matt Verderam on the show yesterday, and his suggestion for Myles Garrett is the Buffalo Bills. What's the Buffalo Bills' biggest problem? If you're the Buffalo Bills, you go get Myles Garrett because your biggest problem is getting to Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
So if you have an opportunity, you figure out and make an opportunity if you're the Bills to go get Myles Garrett so you could do the one thing against Patrick Mahomes you haven't been able to do, which is get to him, which is why you've lost 4 times in the last 5 years.
But you also have to have the right players in the right scheme. You could have the right scheme, but if you don't have the right players, it doesn't mean anything. Because I think the Eagles were the only team to figure that out.
Yep.
Other teams didn't. The only other team that beat them, but it wasn't because they were putting pressure on Pat, was Buffalo during the regular season. And that was it. In the games that Patrick Mahomes started, I know they finished 15-2. But you have to have the right players in order to perform that scheme.
I gotta say that. I gotta say this. Get off that for a second. Go to Aaron Rodgers while we have a few minutes left in the segment. I don't understand. And we have not heard from Aaron Rodgers himself. I thought he was supposed to be on with McAfee this week. I don't know. But we have not heard from Aaron Rodgers himself. We're just hearing all these different rumblings. Oh, he called the Giants. Oh, Max Crosby is trying to get him to come and play in Las Vegas. We have not heard from Aaron Rodgers.
And we're not going to hear from Aaron Rodgers. This is all speculation because people need to sell for the next day. They need to be able to garner interest so people can read whatever they're putting out there. But you're not going to hear from Aaron Rodgers until he's ready to speak.
Well, or until he actually knows where he's going to go. Maybe he just doesn't want to deal with it. Maybe he doesn't want to deal with having to answer questions about every potential team that he could wind up with. But
this
to
week
me,
starts answering questions.
But
this week with the
go ahead.
No, this week with the franchise tags, it starts answering questions. You're able now to start seeing where teams are going to be looking at next week with free agency and the draft.
You know, the thing that I find funny is this idea of, well, Tom Brady being in Las Vegas with the Raiders and, Matthew Stafford meeting with him in a ski resort. First of all, I don't really care that Tom Brady's a minority owner. I don't know how much that really changes the game when you talk about – but people want to make it sound like it does, Vlad, and it drives me bonkers. I know, but common sense tells you he's not coaching the team. He's not the general manager of the team. He's a minority owner of the team. Unless he can transfer that wonderful Tom Brady-ness to some of these other guys and turn them into him. I don't get it.
Paige, the name Tom Brady sells. I mean, what was selling NFL every time you would watch all these talk TV shows, sports shows? It's LeBron and Brady. As long as you mention their name, people are going to interest. So
but
the fact
interest is one thing, but I just don't understand. If you're Aaron Rodgers, and clearly if you were Matt Stafford, there wasn't enough appeal of Brady being a minority owner that it was going to make these guys go and play there. I think these guys are smart enough to know that it's great that he's a minority owner of the team. It doesn't change the fact that Mark Davis is still the owner of this team.
I don't want to use it. It's like when Jay-Z had like 0.8% of the Nets ownership. But people would say, you know what I'm saying? He did have ownership, but because the name Jay-Z sells, you can say he's an owner and people can be like, oh, let's go see the Nets. It's the name Tom Brady. You saw Fox. Fox did everything they can. Brady on Fox. Brady name sells. LeBron James name sells. Lionel Messi name sells. They don't have to have a significant part to do with anything. But as long as their name is on it, it's going to sell.
By the way, congratulations, Saquon Barkley. He got the bag. 2 years, $41.2 million.
The Eagles do things right, man.
Yep,
they just do things right.
They do. They get it. Tee Higgins got the franchise tag, too. So
Poor Tee Higgins.
Yeah, poor Tee Higgins. He's still going to make a lot of money. I ain't feeling that bad for him. We're coming back. I got more football to do. Bill Belichick next. Thank you for being with us. This Wednesday edition of SportsWrap. Our man Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com, coming up in about 10 minutes. Spend a couple of segments on the NBA with him. Let's flush out some more football talk. So, Bill Belichick apparently UNC was approached about the idea of doing Hard Knocks. I didn't even know that there was going to be a college edition of Hard Knocks. Shows you how much I'm tuned into what's going on.
I don't think there's been a college version of Hard Knocks.
No, I know there hasn't been. That's what I didn't know.
They were going to try to, they were just going to use it because of Belichick and the hype that North Carolina has gotten since he's been hired as head coach.
But here's the thing. Why wouldn't they, if you were going to ever do this, why wouldn't you have done it with Deion? Like, as soon as I saw this story, I'm like, if I'm approaching anybody about this, and anybody who watches this show knows I can't stand Deion Sanders, but anybody who watches this show, knows I'm not a big fan of Deion. But if you're talking about the hype machine and, getting eyeballs to the screen to watch it, beat the snot out of bad teams, yeah, I'd go get Deion. I'd go do Hard Knocks with Deion if I were HBO Max, Max TV, whatever the hell they call it these days, because they've rebranded it about 17 different times. That's what I would do. By the way, we love you over at Max and Warner. But Bill Belichick said the same thing he said to me when I approached him on a driving range about 15 years ago and asked him for an interview, and he just looked at me and went, no, and just kept walking.
Yeah, at least he was nice. He thought about it.
Yeah,
and then tell Gino.
I got a whole bunch of thinking. It was, no.
Yeah, you thought about it and gave you the no. That's good.
Just kept walking.
I think this was all a ploy, to be quite honest. I think somebody threw it out there knowing that he would say no, but knowing that it would garner interest and put something in athletic directors and universities' minds to be maybe the first university to do a Hard Knocks. And it might, I think, like you said, a team like Colorado with Deion and all the celebrities that and fan interest, that would be a great watch. But I think other universities could utilize this as a way to get recruits, to get better recruits to come to your university. So I won't be shocked if we see a Hard Knocks college version. I just know it wouldn't be North Carolina. Not the way Belichick runs things. Belichick's going to run that university like an NFL team.
I wonder what is a realistic record for UNC next year in their first year under Belichick, because we got to be realistic. He's playing with other guys' recruits. Yeah, some guys leave and you bring in some transfers, but I'm just looking at their schedule. They got TCU, Charlotte, Richmond. I mean, they'll be 3-0. There's a good shot to be 3-0 out of the gate. I don't know how good TCU will be.
I think they win 6 games and is able to.
This is a team that lost. This is a team that lost to UConn in a bowl game this year. And
UConn's not a bad school.
No. You don't have to tell me. I'm a huge big Jim Moore Jr. fan for what he's done over there. Yeah, because that program was basically on life support. Like, they were ready to pull the plug on UConn football altogether because of how bad it went over the last decade. But I'm looking. They got Cal. They get Clemson October 4th.
They're gonna play the ACC. They gotta play
Virginia,
Miami, Florida State of the world. They're gonna play that Clemson.
They actually don't play Miami next year. They actually don't
last year. Yeah, well, it's the Super Conference. There's gonna be
you're gonna miss teams, which is why a team like Indiana, was so good this year. They missed so many of the difficulties.
Yeah, the only game they had was Ohio State, and they lost that, but they were still able to win every game that they had on their schedule to get a invite to the college football playoffs. But yeah, that's not going to happen, man. Come on, man. We're talking about Mike Lombardi. We're talking about Bill Belichick. We're talking about guys that ran an NFL franchise. Like, they don't want any cameras involved in their locker room.
Yeah. No. More to say about this in just a moment after a word from our friends over at Credit Associates. Are you $10,000 or more in credit card debt in over your head trying to make monthly payments? Well, there's a powerful debt relief program the credit card companies don't want you to know about. Overcome the debt trap of multiple credit cards, high payments, and high interest rates that keep you in debt for decades with one affordable low monthly payment. Credit Associates Debt Relief Program can help you resolve your debt in as little as 24 to 36 months, and that'll save you thousands of dollars and decades in debt. Don't waste any more time. Call them now. Find out how much you can save at 1-800-747-5362. Again, 1-800-747-5362. If you got more than $10,000 in credit card debt, give a call to our friends over at Credit Associates or just scan the QR code below. I'd call Deion. And other than that, I don't even know who else I would talk to.
And I don't think Deion will do it because I think Deion has a deal with Prime, with Amazon.
Oh, that's a good question. They do some
have
stuff
deals
with him, don't they? Wonder why Prime wouldn't just do their own with him, sort of.
They probably have. They've done that. They've done that with him in Jackson State in the first 2 years in Colorado. His years in Jackson State and in Colorado. So Prime's got his own deal with Amazon Prime to record what goes on in his program.
Of course he does.
There are going to be teams. There are going to be universities to use this as a tool for recruits, bro. I won't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if Lincoln Riley allows USC to use it. You know who can use it right now?
Who?
Though that he doesn't have to do it, but right now he's on top of the world. If Ryan Day wants access to Ohio State, guess what? He can. Listen to him. because he's the national champion.
Yeah.
He had to deal with all the nastiness after he lost to Michigan. He's the one with the 1-4 record against Michigan. Everybody wanted his ass fired. And guess what? He won the national title in the first college football playoffs. So, yeah, he can do if he wanted to do a college football in Hard Knocks, he can.
And you know what? Michigan fans will be quick to remind you that he is still 1-4 against Michigan.
Oh, and that would be great because they would be, they'll show all those Michigan fans saying all of that, and then Ohio State owns the national title.
And that's it, right? It's like Met fans. I say it all the time. It's like Met fans. What's the Mets fans' idea of a successful season? Any season where the Yankees don't win, or any season where the Yankees don't win the World Series. That's a successful Mets season. By the way, speaking of the Mets, we'll talk about it tomorrow on the show with David Aardsma, our former MLB reliever who hangs out with us every week on the show. Mets highest payroll in baseball again this year.
Really? Over the Dodgers?
Yep. Steve Cohen, man, he is the modern-day Steinbrenner. We're coming back with Kurt Helin next. Welcome back to this Wednesday edition of Sports Wrap. We've talked some football. Now it's time to talk some NBA. We do it every Wednesday on the show with Vladimir Lewisant and this guy, Kurt Helin, the basketball and pro basketball talk at NBCSports.com. I'm trying to get Vlad out here. We got a NASCAR race coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm trying to get Vlad out here to come out for the race because we've got a basketball court right outside my door, right outside my place here. And I want to see Vlad play basketball. I've never seen Vlad shoot hoops, so I want to see.
You want to see him dunk? We all know he can dunk.
Oh God, he can't dunk.
No,
he couldn't dunk a donut.
And the last time Vlad played ball, oh man,
didn't you hurt yourself? Didn't you hurt your leg or something? Oh, okay.
Even about hurting yourself, it was just about oh my God, your skills is really eroded. You know what? You might be better talking about it than playing it.
All right, fair enough. I went out there and shot around recently, and it wasn't pretty. I could still shoot free throws. That's the one thing I could still do. I could still shoot free throws.
Well, look, I went to the Knicks Heat game Sunday night. As long as you could shoot better than Cameron Payne, you have to witness the disgust. You have to witness the nastiness in person to appreciate it.
That is not a pretty shot. That is not.
It is a disgusting shot, Kurt. Kurt is the most disgusting shot I've ever seen a man shoot.
Yeah,
it goes in somehow.
Well, let's talk about
Jordan Farmar bad. Yeah, not Jordan Farmar. Young Lonzo Ball.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Knicks for a second because the Warriors. I was watching that game last night. Game goes to halftime. Knicks are up 8. I'm like, Knicks got this thing locked down. They're playing great defense. All of a sudden, I turn the game on in the fourth quarter. The Warriors are winning, and I'm sitting there scratching my head. I know there was no Karl Anthony Towns for the Knicks. I'm not stupid. Well, I am, but I'm not that stupid. But at the same time, I mean, take care of your business. You got to be able to beat the Warriors at home.
The Warriors were at a massive rest disadvantage. That was their third game in 4 nights, second night of a road back-to-back. That is exactly the kind of game, if you're a truly top team, you just, like you said, you take care of your business. Doesn't matter the cat's not there. You should be able to slow them down enough and get some buckets, and they couldn't stop them in the second half. And it was, I had that game on as well, and I was mesmerized. I kept flipping around to other games and coming back to it. Like, why aren't the Knicks blowing them out? Because this is why I don't bet on basketball, man. Because if I had, that would have been one of my bets last night. Like, oh no way, third game of 4 nights in Madison Square Garden, they're gonna fall apart in the second half.
Vlad and I talked about this on the show yesterday, right? Vlad, I mean, we've never seen a team with a 666, basically a 66% winning percentage that can't beat anybody.
They have the 4th best record in the league, Kurt. The 3 teams ahead of them beating them by an average 30 points every time they faced them. Like, I've never seen anything like this. Never. A 40-win team, 21 losses after last night, and they could beat any team 650 or lower. The only teams they can't beat are OKC, Boston, and Cleveland, who are all like 750 and above. And now they can't beat veteran championship experience teams like the Lakers or the Warriors. Yeah. This is second-round knockout.
Yeah, it's what it's going to be. They're gonna win their first round series over whatever dregs are at whoever gets the 6th seed. Is that Indiana right now?
Detroit could be Detroit.
It's Detroit, which could be Detroit. A tougher series.
Detroit would be fun. That would be interesting. I still think Detroit wouldn't be able to do it over 7, but they'd push them a little bit. And then you're right. They're just going to get stomped in the second round by whomever.
Knicks and, by the way, if it's Knicks and Detroit, or Knicks and Bucks in any sort of postseason series, just take the over in every game.
Yeah.
Just take the over in every game.
Kurt, the Lakers have now got to the 2nd seed in this Western Conference.
Didn't think I'd see it.
I don't think nobody expected to see this. Talk to us about after a month of this trade, clearly the trade is leaning favorably to one side.
Yeah.
Is it possible that are they still playing with house money? The fact that they really don't have the full roster that they would want for the Luka LeBron dynamic. So even if they get, say, to the Western Conference Finals or NBA Final, the fear that the league will have that they've got this good with this in this short amount of time, and they're going to have a full offseason to get the proper players to put around Luka and LeBron to make this. We're looking at possibly another 3-year run for LeBron, maybe?
That's really one of the interesting questions because he has been phenomenal. He was just Player of the Month for February, and he earned it. And not frankly just, he scored, and now he's got 50,000 career points, and his offense has always been there. Having Luka take the load off of him on offense has turned him into a defensive monster. He has really unleashed on that end of the floor. He has been all defensive level player over the last month because he doesn't have to focus, because he doesn't have to take that responsibility nightly. And with that, the Lakers become a good defensive team. I still think they could run into problems against when you're talking the very best teams. But until then, and there's they get the Celtics this week. I think it's Saturday or Sunday. That's a good test, but they're right there. This team is that good, and you are spot on, Vlad. They need a defensive center who can, with all due respect to Jackson Hayes, they get one of those, they get a little more shooting on the wing. Another Dorian Finney-Smith looks so good with these two guys around him, man. Everything clicks.
They do. Can I throw this out at you as well? Is there a chance that the Lakers could get to the conference finals and doesn't meet up with Oklahoma City? Because an Oklahoma City-Memphis conference semifinal looks really interesting.
It does. If Memphis doesn't fall apart between now and then, they without Jaren Jackson Jr. They're in the middle. That really tight middle 2 through 5 is just really tight in the West. And Jaren Jackson Jr. is out with a sprained ankle, grade 2. So we're talking weeks, probably about 3 weeks.
Oh, that's a
5, and that's a tough spot. And honestly, Jaren Jackson Jr. is underrated. He's one of those guys where I don't think people realize he's
best player on the team. He's the best player on their team.
He's their best offensive player and their best defensive player. In fact, he's in the mix for defensive player of the year. He leads that team in scoring. So they're going to, now Jaw's still out. John Morant will be back soon enough, but they're not quite right. So they could slip a little, but yes, that would be that would be an entertaining mix. I don't think anything keeps them from the conference finals, but I'll tell you, like I've told you before, I know scouts, I know people I trust who think Oklahoma City, they're good, but they're a regular season team who could still get bullied in the playoffs. I'm not sure Lakers or Denver can do that, but we're going to find out. They've still got to prove it, I guess.
Let's continue we'll continue the conversation, Vlad. Don't worry. Kurt's hanging around for one more segment. We've bolted him to the chair. We'll come back. More to do with him. Kevin Durant says, no big deal, me and Budenholzer. Nothing to see here. Is he right? We'll talk about it next. All right, one more segment on the NBA with our friend Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Vlad's here too. In spirit, anyway. If nothing else.
Not in a physical form.
No. We were talking during the break about the Phoenix Suns. So we had this exchange last night between KD and Budenholzer, where Budenholzer's trying to talk to him, puts his hand on him, and KD kind of lurches away, and it looked like they kissed and made up. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And after the game, KD basically said it really wasn't that big a deal. I was listening to Stan Van Gundy even during the broadcast, friend of the program, and even he said, he's like, look, I've had one of those virtually every game that I've ever coached. That all having been said, as you pointed out, the vibes around this team are not very good, Kurt.
No. And you can feel it through the TV, right? Like the body language on that team. And so it's hard, as much as Stan and Budenholzer and KD are right, like this stuff happens all the time. It just takes on a magnified thing where you're like, every time you see them, you're like, that's just more evidence that everything is wrong in Phoenix. Even if it's not that big a deal, now it's just added to the pile of circumstantial evidence about how bad things are. And by the way, with Kyrie out in Dallas, one spot ahead of them, the door is open for them to actually make the play. And
I said this yesterday.
The Clippers helped out by blowing a 19-point fourth quarter lead. They're their own problem right now. But like the door is open for them to make a push, and frankly, maybe even Portland to make a push into the postseason. If they get together a little run, but they've got to string together wins. And I will throw out this one other thing about Phoenix. According to our friends at tankathon.com, the toughest remaining schedule in the NBA, Phoenix.
Yes. And if you're in that 11, 12, 9, 10, 11, 12, it's almost like you're playing a playoff game every night because you're going against a team that's either there's only two teams in the Western Conference that's not competing for a play-in or a playoff spot. That's New Orleans and Utah, and everybody else is pretty much. Huh?
And New Orleans isn't playing badly right now either.
Well, yeah, when their starters play now, if they have to play a second game in a back-to-back, forget about TJ or Zion playing, but they do play well. And then when you watch them, especially yesterday, you're like, why are they struggling? But speaking of the West, Kurt, have you noticed that teams more now saying, you know what? There's no fear in playing Houston, no fear playing Memphis, and no fear playing OKC. After seeing OKC lose a 25-point lead to Minnesota like a week ago or two, I saw Houston lose. Memphis lost a tough one in overtime. They lost 3 games in a row on the last possession.
Yeah.
I feel like the teams like Golden State, the Lakers, the veteran teams are not afraid of the young teams in the Western Conference playoffs.
I think Oklahoma City's a little bit different because they have done some stuff in the playoffs. They have the guys, but again, like we've talked about, they've got to prove it. But you are spot on about Memphis strikes no fear anymore in anybody, despite all that. And for all the athleticism, and I kind of thought Houston was a bit of a regular season team. They're deep, they're long, athletic, they're trapping you, they're doing all this stuff. But once you get into a series where you're like, all right, I know what to do with this, and you start, they don't have the counters. And really the big question in Houston is who's going to be the number one? Who's going to be the alpha? Who's going to be the guy? Because you've got that in Memphis, at least. It's like it's Ja, it's Jaren Jackson Jr. They've got a couple of those guys, and they've just got to build it out around them. I think they're closer. Houston has got to figure out what the pecking order is. It's this. You need depth, but you still got to have somebody you can throw the ball to go get a bucket at the end of the game. And I'm not sure if Amen Thompson's that guy right now. Maybe he becomes that guy, but I don't think he's that guy right now. And so you're right. Everybody would like to face those guys in the first round because especially at the bottom, if you're Golden State, I'd take either one of them in the first round.
I got 2 minutes real quick. A couple of quick hitters. On the Phoenix thing, where does the blame ultimately? Does it go all the way to top to ownership? Yes. Like, where does the blame go for how badly this whole thing's been built?
It starts with ownership. As bad a case of new ownership issues as we've seen in the league. There's always a learning curve, but this is Vivek Ranadive level where he came in and made the Kevin Durant trade, made all these moves, goes and gets Bradley Beal, and in doing so sends out all the picks. They have no quick path to a rebuild right now other than ultimately trading Durant and getting picks back. They're an unstable, unserious organization. Right
is it lazy to think that? Is it lazy thinking to say, the Celtics are just kind of putting in cruise control. It's the regular season. They know what it takes to win a championship. Or is there something legitimately missing from this team if there's a component missing of it being a championship team for a second straight year?
I think they see it as that, as we're fine, we can flip the switch, and they've certainly had good stretches, but they're not building good habits, I don't think. Like they did a year ago where they steamrolled the league. I'm not sure the habits are there, and I'm with you. If everything is right, like if everything's right for them, I still think they're the team to beat in the East or in the NBA period. But if things are just a little bit off, they didn't have a Cleveland last year right behind them, as good as them.
They're 8 games ahead of them. Stop saying they're right behind them. They have an 8-game better record.
He's talking about last season.
I don't know. He's saying now. He's saying now.
I still look. I'll still take fully healthy. I'll still take Boston in a playoff series, but Cleveland's right there and can push them. And Boston hasn't been healthy, hasn't been right, hasn't played at that level. And if they don't find it over the next couple of months, they're in real trouble.
All right. We're out of time. I wish we had more time because I'd talk about the dumpster fire that is the Philadelphia 76ers.
Oh, there'll still be a dumpster fire next week, man. Don't worry.
Why are they even on TV?
Oh, my God. Can't we switch out of some of those games? There's a couple of
flexing in the
flex.
NBA. That's
Flex.
another topic.
All right, we got to go.
Yeah. I don't want to get in
Thanks,
trouble with my
Kurt.
bosses.
We'll see you next week, Kurt.
Take care, man.
We're coming back. All right, so let's take it to segment 5 on this Wednesday edition of Sports Wrap. Kyle Larson on the show tomorrow. NASCAR extraordinaire. Be talking with him today. We'll have that for you tomorrow on the show. All right, Vlad, something to consider on this Wednesday edition of Sports Wrap. Anybody who watches the show knows I'm not a huge Anthony Edwards guy. He had the whole thing where he was, seen driving around in the hood and making fun of people associated with the LGBTQ plus community. There's clearly maturity issues here. Look, he's young. He came into the league young. What's he, 21, 22 years old, something like that? I mean, he's not a kid. I mean, he came into the league young. So I get some of this to an extent. But I've never been a huge fan. And then you had the story that came out after the All-Star break where he basically came out and said, I don't want to be the face of the league. There's Wemby. Let Wemby be the face of the league, basically. He came out and said. And honestly, I don't even have necessarily a grudge against that because, as LeBron James pointed out, and some people took issue with LeBron about this. You might have. I don't remember. But there were certainly some people.
I agree with you.
All right. Because what LeBron said was, why do you want to be the face of a league that everybody's trying to take a dump on all the time?
Exactly.
And especially people that are embedded and cover the league, the Shaqs and Barkleys of the world and all these guys who just want to say, oh, it was so much better when we played.
Of course.
And LeBron.
Everybody has the delusion of nostalgia.
And so I think some people are just jealous of the amount of money these guys make that they didn't make, that they were born, 20 years later.
Yeah. And guess what? Those same people that are upset that the players are making money, the amount of money that the players are making now, are the same players that were getting hated on by the generation before them when they were making the money.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. No, I get it. We're on the same page here. We're simpatico. But what this story that I saw yesterday, and this, it borders on titillating and salacious and TMZ sports-ish, and it's almost something that I should be talking about with our guy Robert Lital, who joins us Fridays on the show to sort of get his perspective on. So Anthony Edwards apparently impregnated this woman in her late 30s, I believe. Why her age matters, maybe it doesn't.
It does.
But okay, so he impregnated this woman in her late 30s and tried to convince her to abort the pregnancy. And she was like, no. For whatever reason. Some people might want to say she was against it morally. Some people might want to say she saw a huge payday coming from Anthony Edwards. I'm not here to judge her for one way or the other on that. She opted to have the child. Now we've learned through court documents that Anthony Edwards wants no contact with the child. He doesn't want anything to do with the baby. And in fact, he's also challenging her claim, because now she's tried to move to California, because in California you can get more money in terms of child support. He's saying she did that just to get more money out of him. He's trying to have it stated that she should be in Georgia, all this. I don't even care about that for the moment. What I do care about is this is a guy that now is, I think there's been enough of a pattern in terms of judgment to understand why, another reason why he might not want to be the face of anything is because then you have to deal with the questions like what I'm asking right now that are going to come with being the face of a league. And maybe he just wants to live his life in such a way, Vlad. Maybe he just wants to live his life in such a way that he doesn't have to answer those sorts of questions.
That's exactly what he wants to do. He's 22, 23 years old. He's still young. So he wants to live young and wild. Think about and because he wants to be young and wild, think about, I'm not judging her or anything, but she's in her late 30s, correct? So she's got nearly over 15 years experience over this young man. I'm just guessing,
Sure.
But over 10 years.
Yeah.
So
I think she's 30. I think she was 39.
So she's nearly 40.
Yeah.
In some instances, she could be old enough to be his mother.
Yes, she could be.
So what I'm saying with it is this: by his transgressions over the years, Anthony Edwards is just wilding, and he's no contraceptives whatsoever.
37. By the way. She's 37.
She's 37.
And he's 23.
Okay, 37. He's 23. 14 years.
Yeah.
Okay, still. But that's a good gap.
Yeah.
She's got a good gap on him. So she knows what she's doing. Second, he doesn't believe in contraceptives, because this is not the first time we've heard a story about that. But he doesn't want any responsibilities with him. Here's what I'm thinking. As immature as he is, I'm thinking he's telling these same women the same thing. These ain't no young girls listening. If 37-year-old, you know what.
And he has another child. About. By the way, he has another child as well.
Right. A child that he also, there's one child that he had that he didn't want to have any access or business with as well. So Anthony Edwards knows he's a wild young man. He's a wild young man. And that's the reason why he doesn't want the TMZ cameras, the news, the local news, the national news, always reporting any single thing that he does. They see, let me tell you that they probably see what's happened with LeBron. He sees what happened with KD, his idol. He saw what happened with Steph. He sees all that media focus on these players when you're the faces of the league. And knowing he's still wild, he probably doesn't want that focus on him. And I don't blame him.
Listen, I think there's something to be said about a man that doesn't want to have anything to do with the child he brought into the world. It's just, and look, we all live in a world where people judge. That's just my judgment. How the T-Wolves handle this and look at him as the face of the organization going forward, we'll see. We're coming back. All right, it's just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Wednesday. Tomorrow, David Aardsma on the show. Kyle Larson, NASCAR great, will hang out with us as well. Actually talking to him today, and then we'll have it for tomorrow's show. Reminder, if you have not done so yet, make sure to check out the SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast. It's available on all your favorite podcasting platforms, starting with Spotify, where you can actually watch the show as well as just listen to the show. Depending, it's all how you want it. All your favorite podcasting platforms have the show. Spotify, as I mentioned, YouTube podcasts. You also have the video version of the show available on YouTube. Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, you name it, we are on every platform. And without any further delay, time for some odds and ends presented by our friends at Credit Associates. How about LeBron James last night going over 50,000 points for his career? I mean, it's a remarkable number. And he just continues to do amazing things on a night in, night out basis here in this weird season for the Lakers that now suddenly has them looking at potentially being a 2 seed, avoiding Oklahoma City until the conference finals, which would be an amazing thing for them. He is amazing. You know what's not amazing? Credit card debt. Do you have $10,000 or more of it in over your head trying to make monthly payments? There's a powerful debt relief program the credit card companies don't want you to know about. Overcome the debt trap of multiple credit cards, high payments, and high interest rates that keep you in debt for decades. With one affordable low monthly payment, Credit Associates Debt Relief Program can help you resolve your debt in as little as 24 to 36 months, and that'll save you thousands of dollars and decades in debt. Find out how much you can save. Call 1-800-747-5362. That's 1-800-747-5362, or just scan the QR code below. We mentioned the Chiefs. They made a trade. Joe Thuney on his way out. He's going to go to Chicago to play for the Bears. So the All-Pro moving to Kansas City. The Bears giving up a 2026 fourth-round pick to the Chiefs in exchange for Thuney. Second trade the Bears have agreed to in the last 24 hours to try and help that offensive line, and they desperately need that offensive line help to protect Caleb Williams, Vlad.
They need to protect Caleb Williams. It's shocking that the Chiefs would trade their best interior offensive lineman, the guy that they asked to go from left guard to left tackle, and was doing a pretty good job until, the Super Bowl, when the Eagles just,
until that whole Super Bowl thing.
But he wasn't. But mind you, he was the only one getting destroyed. The whole offensive line was getting destroyed.
Let me ask you
But nonetheless,
something.
It's just very interesting that they would let Joe Thuney go. I think the Chiefs probably seen that they got away with a lot of things over the last 3 years in their run for the three-peat. So they probably want to make sure that they're going to shore up the offensive line. This is a great move for the Bears because Caleb Williams needs all the protection in the world. You saw what happened to him last season. A lot of people think he had a bad rookie year. I think he had a really good rookie year. It's just that Jaden Daniels had a more impressive rookie year. But Caleb, if he gets time to throw, I think Caleb will be a great quarterback.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I haven't gotten you on the record on this. So real quick, because there's one more story I want to get to. Are you a Caleb Williams guy? Because I don't know if we've had you on the record.
Guy.
Okay.
I am a Caleb Williams guy. The only knock I have with him is that he wants to play too much backyard, too much out of the pocket, too much,
holding on to the football, running around in circles. Yeah,
that
I get
type
it.
of thing.
All right. TKO and the Saudis coming up with a new boxing promotion because the Saudis, they want to get their hands in anything sports related as their sports washing efforts continue. So TKO, the Saudis, a boxing promotion. Can it work?
Yes.
I agree. I agree with you.
And I'm going to tell you why. If you notice over the last 2 years, the Saudis are giving you fights.
Yep.
Whether it's like, two boxers or an MMA guy and a boxer, they're giving you fights that you're interested and you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So whether it was Francis Ngannou versus who was it? Was it Deontay?
Yeah, Wilder.
Or Anthony Joshua. I think it was Anthony Joshua. Okay. But you had that type of fight. You had Ngannou versus Tyson Fury. That was a big fight. Fury got knocked down by the MMA fighter. It is something that captured your attention. I think the next move is probably a Jake Paul, Logan Paul, one of the Paul brothers fighting a legit name boxer in his prime right now. There was rumors of a Canelo Jake Paul fight.
Yeah, almost that. And it wasn't rumors. Right. It was according to Jake Paul, it was a done deal, and I think the
Saudis were involved with this as well. So yeah, I think this is going to be. Let's be real. Boxing's been kind of dead for a little bit, man. You don't have the HBO.
Don't tell that to boxing guy. Don't tell that to boxing guy because he'll always say no. Audience still there.
I can say that because you know why? The organization that's been running a lot of the fighting and combative sports has been TKO. Yeah. TKO owns UFC and WWE.
Yeah.
So what's next? Might as well get into the next combative sport, which is boxing, and then you have all three.
Oh, don't forget about slap fighting
or bare knuckles.
God.
Ooh, I would be the best slap boxer out there, man.
That
was the thing we did.
power slap thing is the most disturbing thing I've ever watched.
Oh, man, nothing humbles you as a man to get power smacked like that.
So stupid. If aliens are watching from outer space, they're like, yeah, there's nothing on that planet worth taking.
The next one's watching it, simulating, like, damn, these brothers are dumb.
We got to go. Thanks to Kurt Helin. Vlad, we'll see you next week.
Have a good one.